Hello and welcome to another edition of my podcast. This is Jack's Throwback Attack. It's that time once again where I am in conversation with another icon of kids' TV. This time around, a man who has voiced so many things, it's very difficult to fit them all in. If you've watched TV at all since the mid-90s, then you will have heard this guy's voice somewhere, whether it be a TV announcement, advert, or cartoon voiceover. This is a really interesting chat with a top fella, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I've got with me today a man with a voice acting CV longer than the A1. He's Marc Silk. Hello.
Good evening, good morning.
Yeah,
good afternoon.
Depends on where you're listening. Yes,
yeah.
It is evening.
Hello, Jack. How you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you keeping?
Lovely. I'm here in the studio, and my little pup is on her sofa under her blanket, so we're all very cozy.
Good stuff. Good stuff. That's what I like to hear. Well, I just said at the start there that you've got a very long CV in voice acting and voice work, and we'll touch on as many. It
sounds
of those
like I'm applying for a job.
Yeah, certainly. Yes.
Well,
yes.
We'll touch
on some of those as we go through this interview. But what I want to talk to you about first is, we were kind of talking a little bit off air that prior to voice acting, you started out in the world of radio. Is that right?
Yeah, well, if it wasn't, I was lying to you for about a quarter of an hour intentionally just to distract. Yeah, I did. As a kid, I adored radio. I adored so much stuff. You know, everything from Muppets to cartoons to special effects to John Williams orchestral scores. But I loved radio as this connection that you had, brilliant broadcasters sharing. My favorite people are the people that made me laugh, or like Kenny Everett, who was just a genius on the radio, or people who shared something they loved. So brilliant music presenters who you felt like they were your friend, and you felt like they were sharing something with you, that you were part of this really cool club. These voices where you didn't know what they looked like, but they were your local heroes, so there was always something very exciting and thrilling about radio, and really well put together, cool, just streams of sound. The theatre of the mind. I loved at school. I would stay up so late listening to interviews every night on BRMB in Birmingham with a guy called Nick Meanwell, and John Slater was the music guy in across Birmingham and the Midlands, and he'd have big name bands come and do interviews with him. Bon Jovi would be there, and if you were a big name, you'd be there, and it was just a thrill to be there. And I was lucky enough to do work experience at BRMB, starting out at school, and I just. I adored being in that environment, being in studios and seeing these people work. And the thing I really loved was sitting in the commercial production studio and watching them make commercials. And you'd see the voice people come in, the voice guys and the voice women come in and perform these commercials. And you go, oh my God, it's them. These really famous voices you were used to hearing all the time. And they're there in front of you, and they don't look anything like you think they'd look like. But it was fascinating. I learned so much from watching people who I just thought were brilliant. In terms of how do you create great sounding stuff. And so I would sit and watch them work. And bit by bit, I taught myself when the studios were empty, I'd sneak in there and learn and play. And so I became a good producer and director and editor and writer, and I ended up like putting packages together, branding, and really almost like audio movie trailers for the radio station, that kind of stuff. And then fast forward to where I am now. Every week I do a session for a radio station in Dublin called FM 104, and I'm the voice that goes, Dublin's hit music station, FM 104. Now, back to the music. Your chance to win €20,000 with Jack Haywood out of his own pocket, and that stuff. So all these, fast forward to where I am now, I'm almost sort of doing my tip of the hat to people that I grew up admiring. In the end, it all kind of seeps down into you. But yeah, I adored my time in radio. And then bit by bit, went from being behind. I ended up being the guy on the other side of the glass, directing voice performers or creating new audio, being a music producer, music editor. And then bit by bit, I needed voices for what I was working on. There was no one else to do it. So I did it. I taught myself and, figured it out. And then bit by bit, it went okay.
Yeah, certainly did. So you went from radio to doing voiceovers, voice acting, that kind of thing. What was your first professional voiceover gig, if you can remember?
Well, I used to do like little comedy bits because I did a radio show for a few years as well in Coventry, and I would do little comedy sketches and things. And it actually got noticed by Radio 1 after 6 months into me doing this. And I got offered something at Radio 1 within 6 months to being on air. And I turned it down because I was too nervous. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready yet. And this guy said, well, I said, I'm still learning. And the guy said to me, but you'll always be learning. And I said, well, yeah, but I think there's a benchmark that I should be at to take on something as important to me as that. And I'm not there yet. I wasn't there yet. And so I did that, and then bit by bit, I kind of I put a show reel together using the production skills that I'd got as a producer, producing my own voice, and I started to get voice work. And the first big thing I ever got, I think it was for Baby Bio tomato growing fluid, and I think I was Tommy Tomato, who was just like, hello, I'm Tommy Tomato for Baby Bio tomato growing food, that kind of thing. And I remember this very first session, it was the first big voice session where there's all the clients in the room in the control room on the other side of the glass. So you're in the voice booth, and then there's the glass, and then the big room, where there's the mixing desk, are all the clients, about a dozen people, making comments about your every move. And before we started recording, I could hear this fluttering sound that was really putting me off. I remember this like it was yesterday. So you sat there wanting to do your best work, and I kept hearing really distracting. And I thought, well, do I say something to them? Will they hear that? No, I don't need to say anything because, yeah, they'll be able to hear it. I don't need to say anything. Like, no, I won't say anything. I looked down and I was holding a piece of paper, this script, and I was so nervous. The script was shaking and it was making this noise, this shaking noise. And eventually I just dropped it, put it on the desk, and then I was okay from then on. But I think the first big one was Baby Bio tomato growing fluid. Then I think I went onto the heady world of fruit pastels. and then it kind of grew from there.
Fair enough. And me and you met at the Comic Con in Telford just before Christmas.
Yeah.
One of the things I asked you about that I was curious about, I'm a huge fan of CITV, and I've watched a few clips, and I've recognised your voice in a few of the continuity links from the 90s. And you told me that was your first live gig, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got good memory. It was my first, yeah. So I was working at BRMB still, doing bits of voices. And the person that normally did it, which it wasn't in Vision, was Steve Ride. And he went on holiday for a couple of weeks to do, I think it was Wizardora, and that he was in. And then they needed someone to stand in, and I was invited to do it. And it was, a dream for me because it was everything that I love. They were showing Warner Brothers cartoons and Scooby Doo, and it was all the stuff I'd watch. So to be able to be that voice and introduce it, it was fantastic. So yeah, I ended up being that guy for 2 weeks. But I did something that they hadn't done before, which was I was introducing them as the characters. So you get the little sort of 10-second clip saying coming up next on CITV. And you get the video clip showing you some footage from the cartoon that's about to happen. Well, I would watch that clip around lunchtime. I would watch all these clips, and then write script to those clips that fitted in with the mouth flaps of the cartoon characters. So I'd say, Zoinks! Like coming up next on CITV, it's the Scooby-Doo. It's Scooby-Doo, right, Scoob? Yeah, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, CITV. and it kind of sounded really good. And as far as I know, no one had done that before, especially live. And it was quite a bold move as well. The first time I'd ever done anything live on TV, to do it in character, lip syncing. I mean, so I made sure I, wrote it, rehearsed it, and it kind of worked. And somebody came in the next day and they said, "We've been watching this. I see that Mark guy's doing a lot of pre-recording then, doing all the cartoon voices." And the producer went, "No, he's doing it all live." So I was really proud of that. It made an impression. And then something that was really exciting, on the very first day, there was a bat phone in the tiny little voice room. So as the continuity announcer for this thing, basically the program would end and then you'd talk, your microphone would go live, and everything you say is then heard all across the UK, if they're watching. And so you got to get it right. And don't be distracted, and make sure you're ready to go and keep it going. And so, the show would end and you go, "More Scooby-Doo tomorrow on CITV. And now, coming up soon, the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries." That kind of thing. And as I was doing this one thing, the bat phone, like old school rotary dial phone, lit up, flashing red. And normally that means like the Queen's died, or something huge has happened, some sort of emergency. So I finished that, and then I picked it up, knowing that I had to do another link in about 30 seconds. And this voice on the end went, "Hello, is this the announcer right now? It's just done that." I said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, hello, yeah. I used to run CITV. I'm now working at Disney. Will you come and work for us, please?"
Wow.
And he goes, "That's pretty great. Before you've even finished your first show on the one thing, your very first show, you get offered to do that with Disney." So I said to him, "Can you hold, please? I'm just going to do a quick link." and he laughed. And I went, "We'll see you tomorrow for another great thing here on CITV." And went, "Hello," and yes. So then I went from that to being the voice of the Disney Channel for 2 years.
Okay.
So for a good while, it was my voice that you heard go, "The magical world of Disney." All that stuff.
I do remember.
Walt Disney Pictures brings you Jack Haywood. That stuff.
Great stuff. That's a great story. I like that. And of course, these were the days. I mean, I miss it terribly. These were the days when CITV came live from Birmingham. I'm very proud of that fact.
It was huge. I mean, really, it felt like. Did you ever go into Central TV or in ATV? It was ATV. Then in 1982, it changed into Central, and it was a powerhouse of a broadcaster. Did you ever get the chance to go in there?
Well, unfortunately not. Not when it was operational. I did have a look around it just before they knocked it down with some other television anorak friends.
Hang on a second. Was I with you and we didn't know each other? Because I did a tour around that as well. It was walking around the studios, almost like it was very dark, and we went to the Tiswas studio.
Yeah.
And there were some big rooms, and there were some big studios in that building.
It wasn't with you, no, but I think they did a couple of groups over.
Oh, yours is probably the executive version.
But I will talk about a time where I did see you somewhere some years ago, but later on.
Oh, dear.
No, it leads on to something really good, actually. But anyway, back to it. So yeah, Central, was based in Birmingham. And it's where CITV came from, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
For many years.
Yeah. But again, that was like our TV centre. Mm-hmm. There was you got TV Centre in London for the BBC. You had Thames TV in London and London Weekend. You had Granada TV, the big powerhouse for Coronation Street, and so many shows that came from there. And I did a lot of shows from Granada TV as well. But Central, that was our version of that. And we had Central TV in Birmingham. And then there was Central in Nottingham. But I always felt it was one of those moments where it was one of those buildings where you'd walk around Central TV and feel like you've arrived. you're part of something bigger than just what you're there for. You'd see all these other people making just really creative stuff. It might be editing or writing or animating or building props, and you just feel you're part of showbiz, and that's really exciting. I loved those days.
Great stuff. It's nice to hear stories about production in Birmingham. It's always welcome to hear that. So, I mean, one of the places I recognise your voice from quite a lot is Cartoon Network. Now, I'm going to go on to my story now. So basically, it's about 7-8 years ago. I was at the launch of something called Big Centre Television in Warsaw. You were one of the people who spoke at the opening, and as soon as you spoke, because I was like, I had no idea who this chap is. There's his voiceover called Marc Silk. And as soon as you spoke, even with your natural voice, I recognised your voice from so many Cartoon Network continuity clips and adverts. So, that's where I recognise your voice from.
That was, again, I was very fortunate early on. When I first sent a show reel out, like your audio CV, when I decided, look, this is what I want to do. I adore this kind of work. My heroes were always people like Jim Henson, behind the Muppets, and Frank Oz, and Kenny Everett, and Mel Blanc, and Robin Williams, but then people like John Williams, or Rick. Let's have a think. Who else would it be? You got great sound designers too. There were just so many influences that were basically voice and sound based. So I put this show reel together to try and get work as a voice actor, and I sent 10 show reels out because at that time I was a producer, so I would hear other people's production work, and one of them I sent them to Cartoon Network. But I sent 10 show reels out, hoping I'd get one response. Like a 1 in 10, I thought it seemed like a good response. So I sent out 10 show reels. I got 13 responses offering work.
Wow!
But one of them that was sent to, which was Cartoon Network. I got a reply from them saying, "Thank you for sending us your show reel. We have never heard of you. We have no need for you. We have to meet you."
Wow, that's quite a response.
Yeah, and it was, and I was so excited because it was Cartoon Network. The people, at the time, they were behind. They were showing all the shows that I grew up adoring. It was, from Scooby Doo to Flintstones to new stuff like Cow and Chicken, and they were just about to do Johnny Bravo, and come on to that. and I went down there, and we got in a room, and I played around and let them hear like a stack of character voices that I could perform really well, that were from shows that they show. So my logic was, I knew they were creating new content, new stuff using those characters. Well, logistically back then, to get any performers from America to do that was a huge undertaking. Because of, this was before web or easy connectivity. And to me, I thought it makes a great deal more sense for them to be able to have a performer in this country that could actually do it there and then, right in front of them. And so in the end, I was really fortunate that I ended up doing a lot of work for Cartoon Network for a good number of years. And it was like everything from all the voices that, Mel Blanc performed, all those characters. I was performing pretty much all of those. It was like, you are despicable. This is the last time I work with someone with a speech impediment to, say your prayers, you lop-eared varmint, or I'll blast you to smithereens. I tried to a putty tat. You bet you throw a putty tat. That putty tat is me. And it would go on, and from, that's right, Fred, come on, Betty, let's go. Say, Barney, where's Betty? And then, hello, you happy people. And now on Cartoon Network, down with Droopy D. Oh, hello. Yeah, sure. So I did a stack of stuff with Cartoon Network, and I was down there every couple of weeks doing things, and it meant so much to me because you're part of this world then of all these characters and shows and makers, and artists that you grew up working with. You end up sort of working alongside some of them, and that's treasure. Forget work for a second. You go, how do you want to spend your day? Sometimes you just want to be in the room, and I was just happy to be in the room with that stuff. But I was very fortunate that we did that, and then from then I ended up being. They were just about to start working with this new character called Johnny Bravo. And I ended up getting asked to do cast for auditions for that. And I ended up being the UK voice of Johnny Bravo for, 3 years, I think it would be, for Cartoon Network. So whenever you heard, yeah, man, oh, mama, man, I'm pretty. Do the monkey with me. It was me. And then we did Johnny Bravo live, actually. Twice a year, Johnny Bravo became the link guy for Cartoon Network. And it was, we took like 2-minute little live bits with callers and sketches. And it was a technological masterpiece. But that was such a special thing to be part of. I adored those times, and again, just working with the team there, it was cool. The audio guy Tudor, super cool guy, and he would bring his PlayStation in. So in between, while the shows were on, or when we had a big break, we'd play PlayStation. Or talk tech stuff or music stuff. And Tudor is a real A-list audio mixer. So he's the guy now that works with people like Jules Holland later. If you ever look at Tudor Davis, that's him. He was the audio guy on Johnny Bravo for the UK. But I was really fortunate that we worked with some real ace people.
So, the days on Cartoon Network were really cool, and I was an avid viewer of watching that. And not only did you do like Johnny Bravo in the UK, but also you did the duties of Scooby-Doo as well when they needed that doing, because the original voice was Casey Kasem, but you did it for the UK.
Well, the original voice of Shaggy was Casey Kasem, and the original voice, so Casey Kasem. So Casey Kasem's regular voice was more like this: keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars. It was, and now time for our long distance dedication. This is Casey. Talking like that, and then you take that up and make it a little more cartoony, and you got like Scoob, really Scoob, let's go, buddy, right, Scooby, old buddy, old pal. And then the voice of Scooby-Doo was a guy called Dom Messick, and he was also the voice. He was like Hanna-Barbera, who were the people that made Flintstones, Jetsons, Scooby-Doo, name them, it was them. They tended to use this core cast again and again and again. So there was a guy called Dawes Butler, who was the voice of Yogi Bear, I don't want me to scare you, him. And so there was Yogi, and then Dom Messick was the voice of, gee, Yogi, don't tell Ranger Smith about the picnic basket. So he was Boo Boo, but Dom Messick went on to be the voice of Scooby-Doo. So Dom Messick created the voice of Scooby-Doo in 1969 when Scooby-Doo first started. And then he died in 95, 96. It wasn't my fault. But he was, I met him I met him just a year or so before we lost him. And it was such a pleasure just to speak to the guy. So anyway, for Cartoon Network, I ended up being brought in to be Scooby-Dooby-Doo. And like that guy as well, Scoob, really Scoob, Zoinks, him, that guy. And for, I think the first thing I did that was 98. I think the first thing I did for Cartoon, for Scooby and Shaggy was 98. Because Warner Brothers brought me into Radio 1. I spent a number of days with it was Zoe Ball on the Breakfast Show at Radio 1. And with Zoe and Kevin doing this double header. And I was in there talking to them about Scooby-Doo, and we did this competition teaching people how to be the voice of Scooby-Doo. And it was amazing. So, and then that went on to me doing, like, any time that they needed a voice of Scooby for over here, or Shaggy for commercials, or Cartoon Network, or CITV, or there was a McDonald's commercial we did in radio, and loads of stuff. I get brought in to do all of that. I mean, going back to Johnny Bravo, they even did a Johnny Bravo Frosties commercial. So Johnny's got, I got a pack of Kellogg's Frosties, but it's Johnny Bravo Frosties, and it's and it's great. So there's Tony the Tiger doing they're great, and yeah, man, I'm great. I'm great.
I'll have to look that up if that's online somewhere.
Oh yeah, or listen, or if you're ever passing through, come and stare with loving eyes at the box of Johnny Frosties.
Yeah, certainly, will do. So the other thing as well, you talk about adverts. Actually, that leads me nicely onto the next part because me saying about recognising your voice. Now, I watched a lot of Cartoon Network and a lot of CITV, and you'd get certain adverts that would be round and round and round and round for years on end. And there's a few that I remember
Hello.
that I know you were the voice of. And again, when I heard your voice for the first time some years ago, I was like, that's the voice of this advert and this advert. And I'm going to name a few that I remember very well.
Okay, let's see if I do.
So I know you did a lot for Tommy Toys, and you say "Trust Tommy" at the end.
Trust Tommy. Trust Haywood.
And one in particular, I remember is something called the Thomas Big Loader, where it was to pass ball bearings around
Hi,
the track.
Tom. Do you want to see Thomas's big loader?
I know.
Hey, kids.
It was. I think I had that toy actually. It's where the
really good.
The trains would pass these little plastic ball bearings to one another along a track.
It
and
was
you do the advert.
It was mechanically really clever because the Thomas Big Loader, the ball bearings go from Jack to Thomas to Bob to over there in the truck, over in the loader, up the hill, down the hill, and there he goes again. The amazing Thomas Big Loader from Haywood. Yeah, it was that. Yeah, so yeah. I did so many commercials for Tommy, and they were so lovely to work with, and it was immense fun. And the thing with it is I actually like this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the things that I would play with as a kid. And, you know, even if you walk into a Lego store now and you saw a great big Lego roller coaster or, you know, whatever it might be, you kind of go, that's kind of cool. And for me, when I'm doing these commercials, I'm just playing again. It's not, I think hopefully one of the reasons why I'm still doing it and why it still works is because, it's sincere when you're doing it. You'll sometimes hear people talk with sincerity. Hello, I'm sincere, talking with sincerity. And you go, yeah, no, you're not. You're just talking. You're just reading words. And you can hear it. You can, the people whose work I really enjoy, you believe the story they're telling you. You know, you're immersed in that moment. You know, it's real as opposed to somebody reading words at you. And it's the same with these commercials. Chances are you go, actually, I think I'd probably like to have that here myself. You know, I've got a Lego train set. I've got a Flintstones thing. The Star Wars Millennium Falcon. Now that would be a fun thing to put together. Yeah. You know, and if I was doing a commercial for that, believe me, you'd hear that I actually like that. You can hear it. And when I'm working with people on these kind of projects, the thing I enjoy so much is actually just working with them. It's like us chatting now. I'm enjoying us chatting. And that's kind of infectious. And you can hear it when it's real. There's a vibe in the room that if you create that or you can capture that somehow, the recording's better. It's like if you hear a singer and they're having a great time in that room, you can hear them smiling. On the recording, you can hear that thing. If they're forcing it, you can hear it's not real. It's like in, if you've ever watched a TV show or listened to, I don't know, the radio, and there's two people that's been paired together and there's no rapport at all. They don't like each other or they won't listen to each other. It comes across. Yep. But if it's sincere, you can hear it. And hopefully that's one of the reasons why, we do this stuff and it works. So yeah, I enjoy doing all that stuff from the House of Haywood.
I've never had somebody do so many name checks for me. Thank you. in an interview before. So that's great. I mean, going back to the Tommy adverts, I was going to say there's a few others that I remember distinctly, and I'm just going to reel them off.
Oh God, okay, right. I got to try and remember them now.
I remember Screwball Scramble.
Screwball Scramble. Oh, that was bonkers. I mean, that was really high energy bonkers, and I saw that again recently, and it's like me going crackers. I think it's like Screwball Scramble. Yeah, it's sort of It was a similar thing to the other one you mentioned, except like turn up to 11.
Yes, I remember the advert really well with the kid on the ceiling and the game being played. Yeah, there was also Pop Up Pirate. I seem to remember
Pop Up Pirate. Power Pirate from Tommy.
And I think Tumbling Monkeys was another one as well.
Tumbling Monkeys. There you go. What a classic.
Yeah, I remember that those adverts were ran for years. Absolutely. Yeah. So that I recognise them very, very well. I think anyone of a certain age, if you watch any clips of Cartoon Network or any compilations, those adverts will pop up.
I have them all here. I do. I have them all still. Yeah. It's it's part of what you do for your day to day. But to be part of that, there was another one as well, which was it was Bounce Bounce Tigger from Ravensburger. It was Tigger is after the said, "Pooh, Bounce Bounce Tigger. What he says is up to you, Bounce Bounce Tigger." And it was it was don't be the one to make it the brand new from Ravensburger, Bounce Bounce Tigger. And that went for a good while. There's been so many of them, but they're massive fun.
I'm sure they are. Yes, definitely. And like you say, you can tell that you're really enjoying it when you do it, and that's what makes it a lot more special. Now, one of the things that I've also got to go on to, because a couple of years ago, I interviewed one of your voiceover colleagues, Mr. Tim Whitnell.
I listened back to that interview a week or so back. It was a really good chat that you had with him. He's such a nice guy, Tim, but you had a really good conversation with him.
Yes.
I could hear that he was really appreciating that you knew his work.
I did, yeah.
You weren't just a guy saying questions to him. You knew his work, and I know Tim appreciated that.
Yeah, we did. We had a really lovely time chatting. We were actually chatting off air for a good half hour before we even started, and then we got so far in, and he was like, "Oh, hang on, my dinner's ready." That's like kind of like really panically rush the last few minutes. And the reason why I brought that up actually is because one of the things that I wasn't forgiven in that interview, because I kind of spoke for almost entirely about Mike and Angela, and then as I said, we ran out of time. People went, "You didn't bring up Fifi and the Flower Tots," and so I thought, well, I'm interviewing somebody else who works on that now, so I'm going to ask about it. What was it like doing that particular children's show?
That is so good. Well, Fifi and the Flower Tots, that was created by that was Keith Chapman, who was the guy behind Bob the Builder. And a couple of years later, I went on to be the voice of Bob the Builder for America, which was very cool. But Fifi and the Flower Tots, it was one of those special moments. We did it for a number of years, and it really did feel like a family. We all became good friends, and Jane Horrocks, who I adore as an actress, I did before we even got to know her. She played Fifi in Flower Tot Garden, and I was two characters. I was Bumble and Slugsy. So Bumble, this adorable little bee who's allergic to pollen, so he's all bunged up. Bouncing blueberries, Fifi. Fifi, forget me not. Forgot. Yeah, to him. So Bumble was completely adorable. And then there was Slugsy, this very cute slug whose best friend was Stingo, a wasp, played by Tim Whitnell. And Tim was very funny as Stingo. He was brilliant as him. And Slugsy was a lovable and huggable and a bit moist. So that was pretty much Stingo. But he's one of my favourite characters to perform, Slugsy rather, because he was just so. He was a very deep character. You know, in the end, he's a slug on a kid's show, but it's so much more than that. He could do anything. He would sing operatic style songs, and it was an amazing project to work on. It was stop motion animation to a very high standard. So the people that created the puppets for Fifi, the actual stop motion puppets for Fifi and the Flower Tots, were McKinnon Saunders, who were the people that did Corpse Bride and Fantastic Mr. Fox and all that stuff. And each one of those little puppets have articulated joints, like your actual fingers and bones and things. Each one of those puppets that was on Fifi and the Flower Tots, bearing in mind there's a lot of them and multiple versions of each one. Each one back then was £10,000 per puppet. About £10,000. Yeah, and then very similar team went on to work with on the following show, which was Roy the Racing Car, which was myself and Tim was on that as well, and it was Peter Kay. So Peter was Big Chris, and then the narrator was Sterling Moss, and one of the guests that we had a number of times was Murray Walker. And honestly, the fun we had on that, because I mean that's pretty stellar cast. And and we got to know, Peter became a good friend, and we did, I ended up getting involved in a number of things that he worked on. So I ended up like doing little cameos in Britain's Got the Pop Factor, and in the 500 Miles video, I'm in that. He invited me to just go and spend the day there and just hang out and play. And so we had some fantastic times during those recordings, and that lasted between the two at least 5 years, I think. But they still hold out. They still hold out really well now because they're just funny. They're just funny shows.
Certainly do, yes, certainly do. And it's great. It's great to hear that you had such a good time on that. And that's interesting that you got to be involved in that music video.
Right at the end. So Peter invited me to go and sort of spend the whole day there and just watch it. There were two main days, and I was on the second day. The first day was him getting the him and Andy and Matt Lucas done, and then the second day was when there was all the A-listers there, and I was just watching and having a great time. And right before the last shot, he went, "Do you want to be?" He said, "Mark," he said, "Do you want to be in it?" I went, "Yeah, sure." I went, "Quick, go and get changed, go in a costume." So they've quickly fitted me with a shirt and a tux. I still got my jeans on. And if you watch the 500 Miles video, there's a sweeping shot just before the camera like pans out, but it's a long shot just before the final chorus. And you see me dancing with Bucks Fizz and David Bellamy.
Okay.
And it's just, this is nonsense, bonkers, and so much fun. And, the people in that room, it was sort of all the people you'd grown up with on TV. And in fact, about a good few weeks before that, we were on a lunch break during Roy the Racing Car. And I remember sitting with Peter, and we were just going through lists of names of people that we thought should be in this thing. And I threw out a bunch, and a whole bunch of them ended up being there. One of them was Shawaddy Waddy, the band that I loved as a kid. And I remember saying, "Oh, Chuckle Brothers." He went, "No, they're touring Europe." And then, but yeah, there was some. I mean, it was just great. David Tennant was there, and there was David Beckham lookalike who was getting a bit too big for his boots, so they hid him behind a pillar. And there was Dusty Bin, and Rod Jane and Freddie. Loads of it. It was just a lot. Yeah. It was just a very enjoyable day.
Very good, very good. I do remember when that came out, and gosh, I mean, what was that, 2007? I don't even want to think.
It must be about that. It must be, yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Wow.
You mentioned that you were involved in Bob the Builder, because, of course, Neil Morrissey is known as being Bob the Builder in the UK. How did you become the American voice of Bob the Builder?
Well, I was working on a show called Pingu. No, that's about Pingu. I was for Hot Animation. So they were the people that did the animation for Fifi and Rory. So I was, they ended up creating like about another 100 episodes, I think it was, of Pingu. And it was animated in the same studio as Bob the Builder. And so they came into the voice booth the one time. The director said, if you were to be the voice of an American builder called Bob, what would you do? And you go, I know where this is going. So I said, hey guys, it's time to build a bridge. Can we do it? I don't know. Union rules. Come on, guys, hustle. I'm not made of cash. And they went, how about maybe a little not as angry? So I went, hi, today we're going to build a house. And I said, maybe somewhere in between. I went, hi, I'm Bob the Builder. Can we fix it? Yes, we can. Come on, Scoop, Mug, Dizzy, let's go. And they went, that's it. And I ended up being the voice of Bob the Builder for America for nearly a decade.
Wow.
And there were three Bobs. It started off with a guy called Bill Duffy, William de Vries. And he started out doing Bob. And then a guy who I loved on Whose Line Is It Anyway, a guy called Greg Proops, he was then Bob. And then there was a big switch of the moving Bob in a different direction. And so Greg stepped away, and they wanted to kind of like give him more of like a smiley, joyful sound. Because, I mean, Greg was so good, but he had this kind of edge. You know, hey, Wendy, that looks fun. You look nice. You know? And he's so good. He's so good. And we like softened him a little bit. And I ended up recording, it was a lot of episodes of Bob the Builder. And so we started off dubbing the English versions that Neil had done, the voice of Bob. And then bit by bit, brand new American versions happened. And it was also then, within a year or so of me doing it, it went from stop motion to CGI. And it still looked kind of good. And then after nearly a decade, the whole thing kind of stopped. And then they completely changed the look of Bob. And I wasn't part of any of that. But I'm very proud that I got to be part of Bob during its golden years. And I took my mom out to New York to the head office of HIT out on Park Avenue, and it was so exciting to just go to be there and to see to go in their penthouse office and their rooftop meeting room that overlooked the Empire State Building, and there was a huge sculpture of Bob the Builder, taller than both of us, and it's funny in situations like that because in the end, I kind of think if you do this work, often you're a fan yourself. I know I am. I genuinely adore this stuff. So if I wasn't doing it for a living, I'd probably be paying to do the tours around the studio. And so I was very excited to go and visit them at their head office. But the thing I hadn't really thought of is they were really excited to meet me because it's Bob the Builder coming to see them. And I hadn't thought of it that way. But it was just very nice. So between the two of us, we just enjoyed each other's company. You all enjoy the same thing. And to have taken my mom there with me too, that was just awesome. But yeah, we did a lot of Bob, and we even did stuff like a Legoland. There was a Bob 4D attraction for Legoland in the States, and what else did we do? The stacks of stuff we did for Bob. Yeah, but and loads of DVD specials and.
I had no idea it was so big in the States. I had no idea.
And Canada. Yeah, it was Bob in the States and Canada. In fact, before I worked on Bob, I worked on I was fortunate enough to work on Star Wars with George Lucas. That was nice. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and so I ended up working. That was the very first. No, it was the second film, was it? First one was Chicken Run, doing lots of chicken noises. It was right near the end of. It was at the end of the main. They'd done all the main recording sessions. I was just starting out, and they needed extra clucks, so I was fortunate to be brought in as an extra. As that, but I ended up being brought in for Star Wars Episode 1, and we recorded it at Abbey Road Studios, which again, dream come true stuff. And you just want to be in the room. Who am I kidding? And I got to work with George Lucas on that thing, and you kind of go. All of these things combined, honestly, the door, once you're fortunate enough to have people trust your work and like what you do, to want to bring you in to create something new for them, it kind of kicks the doors down for other stuff. But the only reason I mentioned the Star Wars thing, apart from the enormous name drop of saying George Lucas, is I've got my, do you know Topps trading cards? Huge deal. Right. So huge thing. My character in Star Wars Episode 1 is called Axe-Mo, A-K-S-M-O-E. He has the head of a goat, 3 eyes, and very dry skin. Desperate need for moisturizer. He looks a bit like Reese. So he's in Episode 1 in the Senate scene. So you'll hear him going, "The Congress of Malastare concur with the right honourable delegate from the Trade Federation. A commission must be appointed. Now, where's Jack Haywood?" Him. So there's that. And so he's got his own trading cards, and they're all collectible. And I've done huge signing sessions in New York for all these trading cards. Anyway, I was at Topps in New York signing all this stuff, and the main guy from Topps came in the room to say hello, and he said, what other kind of stuff you work on? What other stuff do you do? And I gave him a card with a list of all these characters. And they went, what? And he went, Jesus, what? And he let out like every expletive under the sun. He went, oh my God, you're Bob the Builder? What? He went, you're Bob the freaking Builder, man. He said, oh my God. And he said, I work with some of the biggest. He said, we get NBA stars, baseball stars, basketball stars, music stars, movie stars. You're Bob the Builder, man. He said, and to him, that was bigger than Star Wars. And he said, right now we're having construction done at our home. And every night, my son waves goodnight to Rolly. You're Bob the Builder, man. And to him, that was cooler at that point in his life than any other character he could have had because of his connection with his son. And to have moments like that with somebody, that's real treasure. Because, you know, I know the performers who did stuff that I loved and love, you know, now. And if I had the chance to meet them, it would have meant a lot to me. And, you know, you become, it's this privilege where you sort of find yourself that you become part of that world. And so for somebody else, you know, you've become, you know, somebody's favorite, you know, cartoon character performer, and it's really lovely. And it's so nice at Comic-Cons when you get to meet people who you've been lucky enough that they enjoy the characters that you performed, and you can, you know, it's lovely to know that somebody that's made an impact on someone's day. But then it's lovely to be able to give that back to them and do something for them there and then that makes them happy. You know, I know as a fan of this kind of work, you know what you would want if you met that person. You know what you would enjoy in terms of an experience if you met that person. It's nice for me to be able to do that for them. But even like just one of the Star Wars thing to just jump in. Like again, you know, look, you're doing what you do now. You're doing, and the stuff that you like that makes you want to do radio. Why? What? Out of interest, why do you want to do radio? Why are you doing radio?
Why am I doing? No one's ever asked me that. It was something I fell into. It's not something I ever thought of doing growing up, ever. And then I left school at 16. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing a media studies course because somebody said, well, you're really obsessed with television. Why don't you go and do that? And I was like,
I did a media studies course.
So I did. And part of that was doing radio production. And I just found that I enjoyed it. I knew a chap who worked here at the time about...
Was it Stuart Hickman?
No, it wasn't. It's a chap called Lee Bannister.
Oh, God.
Who worked for Beacon Radio many years ago.
Yeah.
He said, well, I work for this place and we're always looking for volunteers. Why don't you come along? And that was nearly 12 years ago. And here I am now still doing it. It's my fun little hobby, and it's turned into doing a podcast, bits of paid work and, you know, little bits here and there. You know, I still have a normal day job, but, you know, it keeps me busy and it's fun and enjoyable, and it stops me, you know, going off the rails sometimes, especially during COVID and that, when you know, we couldn't do that much. It was a saving grace to still be able to do this because, of course, you're on your own in a room with thick walls and windows. It was a perfect environment.
Germ-absorbing carpeted walls.
Yes. So that's me. I've never been interviewed on my own podcast.
Well. Again, it goes back to, you know, for whatever, there's a thing that attracts you to that kind of work or environment or a space. And again, right, with Star Wars and well, frankly, so many movies, I've always loved the work of John Williams. So, you know, from everything from Jaws to E.T. to Superman to Star Wars to you name it, it's John Williams. And I genuinely love John Williams' work. Well, from working on Star Wars and other projects down the line, the kind of people I ended up working with on other events kind of found out the love I have for John Williams' work. So anyway, that's led to these other incredible projects. So a few years ago, I hosted a show, and it was myself on stage as your on-stage host with, and it was a Star Wars symphony, a symphonic Star Wars, a Star Wars symphony. So it was me the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra live at the Royal Albert Hall. And we did 2 shows, and each one I think was about 5,000 people. We had over 10,000 people come to see us, and it was good God, it was a thrill, and to hear that orchestra right, up close to your nostrils. It's unbelievable. If you ever get the chance to hear those, have you ever heard those scores played live?
I haven't, no.
You gotta go.
Okay.
It is honestly, it's goosebumps. If there's a bit of fluff on your arms anywhere, you will be getting the hairs standing up on the edge of your knuckles. It was such an amazing thing to just watch them work. But again, my approach to that, I'm the host of the show, and you got to make sure you're on your A game. You're at the Royal Albert Hall. You're the guy that's leading this show through, and so the way I approach that is, if I was in the audience, what would I want? What would I want to hear? What do I want that guy to do? What do I want them to play? And that's kind of how we structured it. For me as a fan, what do I want to see? So you better be good, because they've been nice enough to come and sit in those seats. But the response was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
Good stuff. Good stuff. It's nice to hear people who are genuine fans of stuff, being as nostalgic and as interested in it as I am about things that I grew up loving as well. So it's always a pleasure and a joy to hear that. We've talked a lot about like the animation side and the children's television side. I know there's way more shows that you've done, but we're just never going to have time to cover them all. But reel off a couple of the other ones that you've done that you've got good memories of.
So we got Star Wars. We have a fantastic show called Danger Mouse. So we did a reboot of Danger Mouse a few years ago, and I ended up being the voice of Nero, Captain Baron Greenback's evil caterpillar. So when you heard lots of him farting around the place, that was me as Nero. Plus, in the first season, I did 31 characters in Danger Mouse across all the episodes. And then I also did, for live shows too, I ended up doing Penfold. We did an Amazon book, which was Penfold's Diaries. Crikey, Chief! Crumbs, Danger Mouse! We turned him a bit Londony. But we did, so we did a lot of Danger Mouse. So we've got Bob the Builder, Rory the Racing Car, The Lingo Show on CBBS. The Lingo Show, hobdiddly-doo, someone's tried to call. We have Black and White, which was an epic PC game about just over 20 years ago. There was Fifi and the Flower Tots we mentioned. There is an awesome game called, there's an awesome game called 2 Point Hospital and 2 Point Campus by Sega. So we've been working on that for about 4 years now. So when you play that game, there is a hospital radio station in the background, and I'm the voice of the hospital radio station. So there's Ricky Hawthorne in the morning on 2 Point Hospital Radio. Good morning. And I'm perpetually happy about absolutely everything. So there's him. And there's Sir Nigel Bickleworth in the afternoon. And frankly, I see everyone other than myself as pure scum. And then there is Harrison Wolf, the nighttime guy, on 2 Point Hospital Radio. Aliens, man, they're real. I have the evidence. And if I don't have the evidence, I shall find the evidence. So these 3 guys. And there's a new one that came out literally a few weeks ago, which was 2 Point Space Academy, where I play Roderick Cushion, space traveler. Him. So that's a big one. So 2 Point Campus, 2 Point Hospital. We have Go Jetters. Go Jetters! It's huge! On CBBS, where I am the mighty Grandmaster Glitch. I'll get you, no jetters. Yeah! He is something special. And I've got all the toys. I've got the plushies. I've got the cushions, the works. So that's an amazing cast as well. So we've got Scooby-Doo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I did a project with a company in Chicago a couple of years ago. So I was the voice of Master Splinter, choose your turtle. And that is how they became the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was Splinter and Bebop and Rocksteady. I'll get you, turtles. And Master Shred. I was Baxter and Baxter Fly. Master Shred, they're coming to get you. And there were other bits and pieces in that. Have you seen a guy called Titan the Robot?
I haven't. No.
There's a really cool. It's a big like showbiz robot called Titan the Robot. He was on Britain's Got Talent last year, and he's done things like New York Fashion Week and played with Rihanna live and done F1 appearances. But Titan the Robot. So he's like, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Titan the Robot. This great big showman. There's him. What else we got for you? Oh yeah, Johnny Bravo. The Pingu Show. The Pingu Show. Hello, Pingu. What's that, Pingu? In an igloo? Oh, Pingu. CBBC. Strange Hill High. That's a very cool animated show. And the showrunner on that, Josh Weinstein, co-wrote Who Shot Mr. Burns for The Simpsons. So good stock there. There's a lovely guy, another one called Dr. Panda. I'm sure you watch that all the time. Where I'm this great big hi there. I play this great big thing called Hooper. Hey, Dr. Panda, how you doing? Yay! Then on Milkshake, there's a show called Milo that won the Best Animation Thing Award last year. So I'm a bunch in that. Stingray, as in from Jerry Anderson, the guy that created Thunderbirds. I love that show. Grew up watching all the repeats of that. And Jamie Anderson, his son, we started recording new audio stories for them, for Anderson last year. And I'm the new voice of Troy Tempest in Stingray. So it's like, okay, Marina, let's go. Fire sting missile. Okay, Commander Shaw. Come in, please, Marineville. Okay, Commander. It's like kind of more... lots of eyebrow acting. What's that, Marina? Okay, if you want. That kind of slightly understated thing. And what else we got for you? There's a show for Tiger Aspect on YouTube called Corpse Talk, where the dead famous come to life. There's there's Thunderbirds as well. Again, the reboot of Thunderbirds. I'm the handsome Captain Wayne Rigby. He's a dude as well. He's got beautiful stick-on, freshly baked eyebrows. But there's a few. There's those, then many others.
So that's the kind of like the animation and the children's stuff covered, and the various other voiceovers you've done. One thing I know that a lot of people talk to you about at Comic Cons is that you've done a lot of voices for video games. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not the best gamer. I don't know a lot about video games, but just want to ask, how did you get into the world of doing voices for video games?
I grew up playing them. I grew up playing them and enjoyed them. And then when I started doing character voices for animation, it was just a natural thing to do, because it's like, well, if you're a musician, you might want to do music for, create songs, but maybe soundtracks, or maybe, where can you perform music? And it was the same with this. Some of my favorite games as a kid had literally things like player 1, fight, player 2, fight, game over, and that'd be it. And in fact, I did exactly those lines. I'm just trying to think, where do I recognize those lines? Oh, I know, it was me. I did a game for my very first Nintendo 64 game, was a thing called Fighter's Destiny. But yeah, it was just a general progression. Do you know Edge magazine? There's a games magazine called Edge magazine. It's been around forever, and it's a really cool game. It's a really cool magazine. And I remember reading this magazine, looking at the back of it, and they were advertising. There was a company advertising for artists and programmers. And I thought, well, there's a company making a game. They might need voice people. So I got in touch with them. I just phoned them. And they invited me in, and we did it with this game, and it kind of started there, really. And I think because I played them and I understood what, to me, the benchmark was of what I thought was impressive. I knew what I thought I should be doing to hit that, to hit a level that would impress me. In the end, I think with anything you do, you try and do. You kind of go, would I want to hear me? Would I want to listen to this? If not, maybe I should change change my approach. And so that's kind of how it started. And I think if you play these things, if you understand them, if it's something that you're into, yourself what you could add to this, or what you personally bring to that kind of world. And you might have ideas that they didn't have, that you go, well, can we try this? Because there's a thing I can do that might might work here. Doesn't mean it will always work, but it just means that there's an option that might take it to this other place. There's a great game called Overlord that I worked on a good few years ago with Codemasters, and the writer for that was just amazing. Was Rhianna Pratchett, and Rhi is she's a prolific games writer, and she's worked on all kinds of stuff, including Tomb Raider and proper AAA games, and so that's Rhianna Pratchett. She comes from good writing stock. Her dad was a pretty good author, but Rhi is just, as an independent writer, she's a brilliant talent. And to get to know Rhianna and to work with her on this was great. And it just shows it shows the importance of the team as well, because you need a great writer, you need a great producer, you need a good director, you need someone that can write stories. Because in the end, this is actually really straightforward. Good stories, good characters, good performances. The end. That's it. And whether visually you're telling that story with puppets or stop motion animation or 2D animation or CGI stuff or cells or just audio. I mean, and just audio, I say, and it's actually, no, it's audio. If a really great story told with just purely audio is magical, because you got the best thing in the world. When it's purely sound, you got the best visuals ever, because it's your imagination. It's your version of how it looks. To hear a really great audiobook. There was a thing that I used to listen to a lot when I was at school, and it was one of these things that you bought the magazine every week or every fortnight, and it came in a binder, not the binder, called Storyteller. And I've still got them. My brother used to listen to them, and I adored them because it was people telling these stories, and it was really great storytellers like Martin Jarvis and other great narrators, of just really people that you loved hearing their voices telling you these stories. But that was quite influential. Do you know, I've never said that in any interview. I've never really considered that either. But look at that. Storyteller. Hearing these people just tell you stories, and what that did for your sense of imagination, because you created in your own mind, you've got your idea of what they might look like, or what that scene is, and what that magical forest looks like, or what the roller coaster looks like, or what that dangerous dragon looks like. Sound is such an important part of this. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how do we get there?
I started asking about video games. I do agree with what you say.
Yes. Yeah. So it was really just saying about the team again. So it just shows how important having a really good team is to construct this stuff, because it's always more than just you. It's about all these other talents that are supporting each other. So brilliant performances, hopefully, great engineers, great writers, great producers, great musicians, all of this. And there's a lot of games I've been fortunate to work on. This 2 Point Campus, we're recording new stuff fairly regularly to make sure that the players are kept entertained and that has a really great life. I mean, I grew up loving arcade games. Every time mum and dad would take us down to Weymouth, the arcades in Weymouth were fantastic, and they always had like proper big, the best graphics, the best sound, big cabinets. And I love great arcade games, and to go from playing Sega's games to being voices in them now, again, that's kind of cool. But another one was, I always loved pinball. I always loved pinball machines. Have you ever played a pinball machine?
Quite recently, yeah.
What did you? Where and what did you play?
Do you know what? I can't remember what the theme of it was, but I can tell you where it was, because there's more than one of these. There's one in Birmingham, but this one was in Glasgow, NQ64, which is an arcade. Yeah, so I've been to the one in Birmingham. I can't remember what I played that one. Probably Pac-Man.
Which was the better one, the Birmingham one or the Glasgow one? I haven't been to the Glasgow one.
Tricky. I think the Glasgow one's slightly bigger. I think.
Okay.
But it kind of winds around a lot, whereas the one in Birmingham's just one great big.
It's like yeah. Well, the reason I do you remember which game you played or games you played? Pinball games.
trying to think.
It
'Cause they
always comes
usually
back to pinball.
They're always usually themed around films, aren't they? It might have been. Do you know? It might have been a Star Wars one. I think.
There you go. Yeah.
I think.
Well, I loved pinball games, and then back in 5 years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, I reignited my love of pinball machines because when all the arcades like shut down, like early 2000s, and then all these machines either were destroyed or went into collectors' hands and disappeared, and then barcades opened up. And some of these things would arrive. I mean, there's a great place in Dublin called Token, and it's classic restored arcade games. And downstairs is a pinball parlor, and very cool place to go. Anyway, I got back into loving these games, and I actually started collecting them. And it's a bit of a rabbit hole. And then I ended up going to Chicago. Because I was just reading about, when you get a hobby and you go, oh, I'm going to watch all these YouTube videos about people who are interesting that know more than I do. And so you get to watch your favorite, people do these shows. And then I got to kind of, I would message them every now and then and not say what I did, but just say how much I enjoyed what they said. And then I found out there was a pinball expo in Chicago. But back in 2018, it'd been going on for years. I thought, I'll go and see. I'll fly over, go have a look, because I wanted to see these people talk about how they create these games, and how hear the artists talk, and the coders and the people that actually do the wireforms and the physical stuff. So I went over there, and someone came up to me and said, "Do you mind if I interview you about being on Expo?" I said, "Sure, yeah." I said, "Sure, yeah." I said, "Nice to meet you. I listened to your show." I said, "I'm Mark." He went, "Oh, I know who you are." You go, "Really?" He went, Yep. We know who you are. And I didn't know that anyone had been, following me being a fan of this. I'd just gone there as a supporter of the hobby. And so anyway, long story short, I ended up getting introduced to a whole bunch of people. And now my voice is in pinball machines. So we did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pinball machine 2 years ago. And I'm 6 characters in that. And I have a pinball. I have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pinball machine that was flown all the way from Chicago. And I know it's just cool. And I know the designers now, and I caught up with them in Chicago a couple of months ago. And in fact, I went from being a fan of this to being asked to be I gave a talk in Chicago in front of these people who I love their work. I got into it because I wanted to just hear them talk, but then you get invited to, do your talk.
Yeah.
And so that's very nice as well.
That's a great story. I like that. And I kind of can, what's the word I'm looking for? Empathize with it, maybe. Because for me, doing this for the last 5 years, getting to know people I admired on the television and in cartoons and animation, and getting to talk to them and be friends with some of them has been, a joy. So I totally get where you're coming from with this.
By the way, got the same headphones.
They're not my headphones. They are the stations.
They're good.
Yes,
these are good
are.
headphones. Yeah. If you're watching this podcast right now, or if you are listening to this right now, go and treat yourself to some Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros. They're very, very comfortable. They have very comfortable pants. You can wear them for a long time, and they sound super duper.
They do.
As worn by Jack Haywood.
I'm going to just snip all these little bits out.
I would.
Just to be my jingle package on the station. But I do have one last question. So you've done a lot of voiceovers for many things, but is there any character, TV show, film, game, anything that you've always wanted to voice but have not? What's your fantasy voiceover?
There's not, I've been really lucky that I've worked with people that I have a great deal of affection for their work. And I'm not looking to copy what other people have done. The thing that I love is creating new characters and new voices, new characters, work on new projects. It's like, would you rather be the cover band or the band that people cover? True. It's that,
Yes.
It's like that.
Yeah,
But you know what? It's still good every now and then to play a few cover tunes. It's still okay to play someone else's tunes every now and then. But I mean, there's a project I'm working on at the moment where it is an existing world. Can't say. We could cover it up with a noise. But again, the thing that I really love about working on this thing I was working on last night, actually, to America, was working with the people there. I was having a great deal of fun and satisfaction and pride in the work I was doing. But the thing I really enjoyed was just working with them. So the thing that I enjoy as much as anything is being in a room full of people you just enjoy being in their company, and you go, we're going to create something special now, and you're on your A game. So you're going to be as best as you possibly can. So it is that. Now, there are certain people the way you go, like I've worked with Disney, and that was a lot of fun. I've been fortunate enough to work with Warner Brothers. I worked with George Lucas, who's a hero. To have presented this show at the Royal Albert Hall is wonderful. There's just really, you just want to work with good people and do good work. That's it. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's someone starting out. If there's someone that's starting out and they're trying to do some great work, that matters as much to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. That's what you want to do. You just want to do. You go, what do you want to do with your day? You just want to have a good day. That's it.
Mark, it's been an absolute joy speaking with you tonight, and just hearing your stories and the great people you've worked with, and the big names as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been great.
Thanks, Jack. I really enjoyed chatting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and a big thanks to Mark for chatting with me and sharing his memories. As always, I'll be back soon with another edition of Jack's Throwback Attack, the podcast. Until then, goodbye.